This is a particularly dangerous situation. Over the last few hours, Typhoon Rai, also known as Odette in the Philippines, has undergone rapid intensification. And it does look like at this time, as it moves on shore into northeastern Mindanao and southeastern Visayas, it will likely be a super typhoon. You can see here, actually on IR, there's pinhole eye that developed right there. Visible satellite imagery here right at sunrise also shows that eye developing with that clear eye wall around it. You're starting to get that buzzsaw shape. This is classic super typhoon satellite imagery, and yeah, pretty scary stuff, to be quite honest with you. I don't try to hype these storms up, but just over the few hours here, we saw this explosive intensification. It's what we often call the Philippine Sea effect. This isn't the first time we've seen something like this just prior to landfall. And my biggest worry is that, we still got Signal Force 3 in place across coastal areas. Hopefully Pagasa does push that up to a Signal Force 4 just because of that still expected intensification just prior to landfall. And to put this in perspective, this is actually Dvorak analysis because we do not have recon. Unfortunately, we don't have hurricane hunters flying out into here. The way we get the intensity estimate is by satellite analysis. And just over the course of about 3 hours, this one went from an estimated about 90 knot winds up and over 115, closing in on 125. We're still expecting this to get up to about 140 knots, which would put it at super typhoon intensity at landfall. What does that mean? Well, the higher chance of damaging winds, the surge threat exponentially increases as well, especially in the bays and inlets in the right front quadrant of this storm system. And of course, we're just getting plenty of more moisture adding up into the storm system. Really, it's just moving over this pocket of very warm water. I know it's December, but we're so far south. This is south of the shear line, which you can kind of see edged off there towards the north. And it's just going through an area that is conducive for intensification, and yeah, it's almost like just throwing gas straight on a fire here. So at landfall, this is still expected to get winds upwards of about 260 kilometers per hour sustained on a 1-minute scale, according to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Pagasa is considerably lower, and there's a few reasons for that. One, they use a 10-minute wind scale, which 1 minute would be faster than a 10-minute scale. And plus, I think they're just, by the time maybe you're watching this, they might have upped it once the sun came out and they see that satellite imagery. And we're starting to get reports across some of these areas. Already heavy rainfall being reported in coastal locations. This is still going to maintain that typhoon intensity as it pushes over north towards Palawan as well, before eventually weakening out as it moves towards Vietnam. That's the good news. Northeast monsoon will finally start to get a hold on it there as it pulls back towards the north. But I mean, boy, right now this is still, as I started off with, a particularly dangerous situation. A few factors. People are going to be waking up to this news of this rapidly intensifying. It's going to be a super typhoon likely at landfall. If not a super typhoon, it's borderline right there. So definitely a different, dangerous situation here. If you watch my updates, I've been doing these for darn near about 15 years now. Try not to hype these storms. So when you see that I'm really saying, hey, this could be serious, I want you to take it seriously. All right, this is a little bit old. This has been updated. We have Signal Force 3 actually across many of these areas. But the key thing I want you to know is the right front quadrant. Dinagat Island, Leyte as well, over towards Samar. It's these bays and inlets here that we're going to be seeing the highest threat of surge wrapping around. And I think the peninsula out there in Tacloban, also you're going to have some of that water funneling up into there. Not completely reminiscent of Typhoon Haiyan, but eerily similar. How about that? It's still kind of a very similar type of storm surge setup. This is a little bit further towards the south than Haiyan was, and a little bit weaker, but still you're going to be seeing some flooding across some of these areas here, not to mention coastal areas further down towards the south, and especially across Dinagat and Surigao Island. I mean, you're already got the winds and the rain picking up there as well. I actually just talked to somebody there. They said power is already out on the entire island. So conditions already going downhill. Cebu, I would not be surprised if you go to a Signal Force 3 as well, as it pushes overhead and eventually pushing off there towards Iloilo, just south of you. Southern areas of Iloilo, yeah, you're going to have those winds up and over 200 kilometers per hour sustained potentially here, even though this is moving over several islands. We got all the water in between, which is just sauna warm, which is going to allow this to maintain a bit of strength. So yeah, it will be disrupted a bit, but it's still going to maintain that typhoon intensity. A lot of people have been asking, you know, what about my island? What about my island, or this island, or that island? I can't name them all, guys. I'm sorry. Pagasa is doing a fantastic job. I will say it. I know I'm often critical. I used to be critical of them. They've improved a lot over the last about 5 years. This particular storm, they're doing a fantastic job. I do expect them to increase that intensity on this as well, as they start to see that satellite imagery really develop over just the last few hours. This pushing off there towards the north and west. Heavy rainfall embedded in this storm. Can't stress that enough too. So we're talking about surge, the wind, but also that chance of some flooding. So with that flood threat, know your hazard zone out here. Somebody asked me, well, what do you mean by coastal flooding? Coastal flooding can mean a few things. Yeah, you might see the ocean, but if you're on a cliff, you're on the coast, you're not going to get flooded. You have to know your own hazard zone. I don't want you to take my word and say you're okay and then you're not. How about that? Plan your evacuation route. Evacuate if ordered to do so. Unless, you know, things start to get really, really dicey. Well, and obviously you're going to evacuate, but make sure you're trying to stay somewhere safe and tell people where you're headed if you can as well. I know it's the very last minute. These are just some really big tips to keep in mind here as this storm system continues to roll off here towards the north and west. Anyways, a meteorologist, Robert Speda. Boy, this is a very serious storm system. Let's just say that. Just a few hours ago, we were talking about a Cat 1. Now we could potentially be seeing on the Saffir-Simpson scale, mind you, a Category 4 pushing Category 5 type of storm, according to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, at least. JMA, Pagasa have a little bit lower, but JDWC, based on that 1-minute wind scale, yeah, they got it up there. So, and also the National Hurricane Center uses a very similar scale. So if you want to equate this to a storm in the Atlantic, we're talking about, yeah, a Cat 5 type of storm developing just prior to landfall. Anyways, stay safe out there, guys. You got friends or families in this area, check in on them if you can. And yeah, I hope these videos help. I'm going to have another one probably in about 8 hours just prior to landfall. Already been a very long day from my previous updates as well. So yeah, check in with Western Pacific Weather on Facebook too. They've been posting a lot of great stuff there too as well if you want some more information on this storm. And of course, Pagasa, they're on top of it. Stay safe out there.